Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today things are going to get kind of sneaky because we're talking about attraction.
Who sneaky is, right?
But not the usual stuff like how to flirt or land a date or any of that. We're going deeper. We're looking at those hidden signals, the ones people send when they think they're keeping their feelings on the DL, especially women.
Ah, yes, the mysteries of the feminine mystique.
Exactly. And before we get started, our source material for today is this video called 5 Signs a Woman Likes You, but is trying not to show it. But even though the title's all about dating advice, I think this stuff applies way beyond romance, It's about how we connect as humans.
Totally. These are like fundamental patterns of behavior, whether it's a potential partner, a friend, a colleague, even that barista who remembers your order weeks later.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like they're saying, hey, you're someone I actually pay attention to. And that's powerful stuff, but so easy to miss. So let's break it down. Signal number 1, increased attention.
So it's not just about listening politely. It's about really taking in what you're saying. Remembering details. Asking those follow-up questions that show they're genuinely intrigued.
Okay, so if someone asks about a hobby you mentioned weeks ago,
Yeah.
it makes you feel seen, right? Like you actually matter to them.
Exactly. It's going beyond the surface level. They're digging deeper, asking about your passions, your goals, even your family. It creates a connection you just don't get with small talk.
Gotcha. Okay, but what if they're just really good at small talk? How do you know it's genuine? That's where body language comes in, right? Signal number 2, and this one is like a whole secret code.
Oh, it is. And so much of it is subconscious, which makes it even more fascinating. Let's start with eye contact. Those stolen glances, holding your gaze a little longer than usual, even quickly looking away when you catch them staring. All potential signs of interest.
But wouldn't that be kind of obvious, though? Like, if you're trying to play it cool, wouldn't you avoid eye contact altogether?
You'd think so. But it's often an involuntary response. We're drawn to what we like, and our eyes tend to follow that attraction, even when we're trying to be discreet.
So it's like a subconscious tug-of-war between wanting to look and wanting to hide.
Precisely. And then there's proximity. Have you ever noticed how someone who's interested might subtly lean in when you're talking, or find ways to stand a little closer than usual?
See, I'm terrible at reading that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, my girlfriend could be sending me smoke signals, and I'd probably think she's just stretching.
Well, that's why paying attention to these patterns is so important. It's not about a single gesture, but the overall shift in their behavior when they're around you.
Okay, so eye contact, proximity. What else am I missing?
Mirroring is another fascinating one. This is where someone subconsciously mimics your posture or gestures. Like if you cross your arms, they might cross theirs a few seconds later.
Hold on. So if I do this and they kind of do the same thing, that could be a sign.
It could be. It's a way of subtly syncing up, creating a sense of rapport. It shows they're paying attention to you on a physical level, even if they're not consciously aware of it.
This is blowing my mind. I'm never going to be able to have a normal conversation again.
Don't overthink it. Just observe and see if you notice any patterns. Another thing to look for is physical touch. And I'm not talking about anything inappropriate, but those light, casual touches like brushing your arm while laughing at a joke or gently touching your shoulder to emphasize a point.
Okay, so not every touch means they're head over heels.
Yeah.
Got it.
Exactly. Context is everything. Some people are naturally more touchy than others. The key is to notice if there's a change in their behavior when they're around you.
Right. It's all about those subtle shifts. So this is all assuming they're trying to hide their feelings. What if they're more open about it?
Well, even then, there are degrees of subtlety. Take playful teasing, for example. It's a way of creating a unique dynamic, a back and forth that goes beyond just friendly banter.
Like if someone teases you about your taste in music, but there's a twinkle in their eye, it's not really about the music, is it?
Exactly. It's about engagement. She's paying attention to you, she's finding ways to connect with you on a personal level, and it's also a way of testing the waters. Can you take a joke? Do you have a sense of humor?
Because no one wants to be with someone who's too serious all the time, right?
Right. Teasing allows her to see how you react. Can you banter back? Are you confident enough to laugh at yourself? Those are all attractive qualities.
This is making me rethink all those times I got flustered when someone teased me. Maybe they were just flirting and I missed the memo.
It's definitely possible. But remember, healthy teasing is always lighthearted and playful. If it feels mean-spirited or disrespectful, that's a completely different story.
Solid advice. So we've got increased attention, body language, playful teasing. What's next on our decoder ring of attraction?
This one is perhaps the most straightforward initiating contact. If she's going out of her way to text you first, ask you questions, or suggest activities you might enjoy, that's a pretty clear sign she values your time and wants to spend more time with you.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Most people don't go out of their way unless they genuinely enjoy your company.
Exactly. It takes effort to initiate, especially for some women who might be hesitant due to societal expectations or fear of rejection.
So even taking that first step to send a text can be a big deal.
It can be. And it's important to recognize that. It shows she's willing to put herself out there, even if it feels a little vulnerable.
Wow, I'm starting to realize how much I've been misreading these subtle signals all along.
Don't worry, we're all learning as we go. And that's what makes this so fascinating. There's always more to discover about the intricate ways humans connect.
So we've got 4 down, 1 to go. What's the final sign we should be looking for?
This one might seem counterintuitive, but it's actually quite common. Nervousness or shyness.
Wait, really? I thought confidence was the name of the game when it comes to attraction.
It definitely plays a role, but sometimes when we're truly interested in someone, we become more self-conscious, more aware of how we're coming across.
So those butterflies in the stomach can actually betray our true feelings.
Exactly. Think about it. When you care about someone's opinion, you're more likely to overthink things to worry about making a good impression.
So I should be looking for signs of fidget and blushing, maybe even stumbling over words.
Those are all classic signs of nervousness. It's like our brains short-circuit a little because we're so focused on impressing the other person.
But couldn't that also be a sign of disinterest? Maybe they're just uncomfortable.
That's where context comes in again. You have to consider the individual and the situation. Is this a sudden shift in their behavior, or is this their usual demeanor? Are they only nervous around you, or are they like this with everyone?
Okay, so it's not about any one sign in isolation, but rather the overall pattern of behavior.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's about putting all the pieces of the puzzle together to see if there's a bigger picture emerging.
I'm starting to feel like Sherlock Holmes over here decoding these secret signals. This is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Before we move on to why someone might try to hide these feelings in the first place, let's quickly recap the 5 key signals we've covered so far.
Okay, so we've got these 5 major signals to keep an eye out for. But here's the real question. Why go through all this trouble to hide your feelings? Wouldn't it just be easier to, be upfront about it?
Right. I mean, if I like someone, I tell them. But I guess not everyone's like that.
It's definitely more complicated than that. Human emotions are messy, and vulnerability can be pretty scary.
True. So let's break this down. What are some of the reasons someone might be hesitant to, show their cards?
Well, the big one, fear of rejection. It can be pretty painful to put yourself out there and not have those feelings reciprocated.
Oh yeah, I've definitely been there. So it's like a self-defense mechanism. Better to stay quiet than risk getting hurt.
Exactly. Especially if they're not sure about your feelings. Why risk the emotional fallout if they can avoid it?
But then you risk missing out on a potential connection too. It's a tough call.
It is. And then there are societal expectations, especially for women. There's still this idea that women should be demure and wait for the guy to make the first move.
Oh yeah, the whole playing hard to get thing. Is that a real thing or just something they make up for movies?
Well, there's some truth to it, but not in the way it's usually portrayed. It's not about manipulating or playing games. It's more about navigating those societal norms.
So even if a woman's interested, she might feel pressure to hold back and let the guy take the lead.
Exactly. And that can create a lot of confusion because those subtle signals we were talking about might be her way of expressing interest while still sticking to those unspoken rules.
It's like a secret code.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And then beyond societal pressure, there's also just the human desire to test the waters before diving in head first.
Okay, this I get. It's like dipping your toes in the pool before jumping in.
Precisely. It's about gauging the other person's interest before fully revealing your own. It's a way of minimizing risk and protecting yourself.
So it's not necessarily about playing games, but more about being cautious and gathering information.
Right. And let's not forget that everyone communicates differently. Some people are more expressive, while others are more reserved. There's no right or wrong way to be.
So what might seem like playing hard to get to one person could just be someone else's natural way of communicating.
Exactly. And that's why it's important to be aware of those individual differences and not jump to conclusions based on one interaction.
Okay, so we've got fear of rejection, societal expectations, testing the waters, and different communication styles. It's a lot to keep in mind.
It is. But that's what makes human connections so fascinating and rewarding. It's not always easy, but when you navigate those complexities and build a genuine connection, it's worth it.
So how do we navigate this tricky terrain of hidden signals and unspoken emotions? what are the keys to becoming a better signal decoder?
Well, first and foremost, be observant. Pay attention to those subtle cues we've discussed, but remember to consider the context and the individual.
Right, don't assume every glance means they're in love with you.
Exactly. Look for patterns for consistency in their behavior. And most importantly, communicate. If you're picking up on these signals and you're interested, don't be afraid to take the initiative and express your feelings.
Because at the end of the day, honest and open communication is the best way to avoid misunderstandings and build genuine connections.
Couldn't agree more. It's about creating a space where both people feel safe and comfortable expressing themselves authentically.
Okay, so we've talked about the signals, the reasons for hidden feelings, and the importance of communication. But I'm still curious, why are we so drawn to these subtle cues in the first place? Why not just skip all the mystery and be direct?
That's a great question, and I think it gets to the core of what makes human interactions so intriguing. On one hand, we crave connection. We want to be seen and understood. But on the other hand, vulnerability can be scary. It requires us to let our guard down to risk getting hurt.
So we're both attracted to and afraid of intimacy.
Exactly. And that's why those subtle signals can be so powerful. They allow us to kind of test the waters to see if the feeling is mutual without fully exposing ourselves.
It's like this delicate dance between connection
Yeah.
and self-preservation.
Precisely. And you know what? This goes way beyond just romantic attraction. These same dynamics are at play in all our relationships.
Okay.
Absolutely. Think about your interactions with colleagues, friends, even family members. Are there unspoken dynamics? Are you sending or receiving subtle cues without even realizing it?
Wow. Yeah. Now that you mention it, I can think of a ton of examples where those unspoken signals were louder than words.
It's a constant dance of subtle cues and interpretations. And the more aware we are of this dance, the better we can navigate it with understanding.
So it's not just about decoding signals of attraction, but about becoming more attuned to how humans connect on all levels.
Exactly. It's about developing a deeper understanding of human behavior and recognizing the power of nonverbal communication.
I love that. It's like we're all sending out these little Morse code messages, hoping someone will decipher them.
And the key is to become a skilled translator, both in sending and receiving those messages.
This has been eye-opening. Before we wrap up with some final thoughts, I think a quick recap of what we've learned today is in order. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive. We talked about those 5 key signals why someone might hide their feelings and how these dynamics show up in all kinds of relationships.
It's been quite the journey.
It really has. But now I'm kind of wondering, where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listeners? What should they actually be doing with all this new knowledge?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think the biggest takeaway is that communication, especially when it comes to attraction or deeper feelings, it's rarely simple.
Yeah.
You know, it's this intricate dance between what we say, what we do, and what we don't say.
And sometimes we're not even aware of the signals we're sending. Like I could be mirroring someone's body language and have no clue I'm doing it.
Exactly. And that's why paying attention to those subtle cues is so important. It's like unlocking a whole new level of understanding.
So it's not about becoming a mind reader or obsessing over every little thing. It's about being more present, more aware of those unspoken messages we're all sending and receiving.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that awareness goes beyond just romantic stuff. It's about becoming a better communicator in all areas of our lives.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we get better at reading these signals, not just with potential partners, but with everyone?
Well, I think curiosity is key. Approach interactions with a genuine interest in understanding the other person, not just waiting for your turn to speak.
It's like becoming a detective, but in a fun way.
Exactly. Pay attention to their body language, their tone of voice. Those little pauses and hesitations, they can tell you a lot.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. If something seems off or you're not sure about a signal, just say, hey, I'm curious about this, or what did you mean when you said that?
It's amazing how much a simple question can clear things up.
Communication is a two-way street, and it's always okay to ask for clarification. In fact, it shows you're really listening and you care about understanding them. That's so true. So we're not just passively decoding signals. We're actively participating in the conversation, both verbally and non-verbally.
Precisely. And the more we do that, the better we become at navigating these complex interactions.
It's like we're training our brains to notice those subtle things that most people miss.
And in doing so, we create space for deeper, more meaningful connections.
Love it. Okay, so for our listeners who are ready to put all this into practice, what's the one thing they should take away from this deep dive?
I'd say it's this. Remember that communication, it's a tapestry. It's woven from words, gestures, expressions, and even silence. Be curious, be observant, and most importantly, be open to the beautiful, messy dance of human connection.
That's a perfect way to wrap things up. I don't know about you, but I feel like I've got a whole new toolkit for understanding those hidden signals. Not just in my love life, but in all my relationships.
Me too. It's been an insightful conversation.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of unspoken communication. Until next time, keep those decoder rings handy, and remember, those subtle signals are everywhere. You never know what you might discover.